Let's get some more on the trade tariff turmoil. Canada now to impose reciprocal tariffs. Our Megan Casella is live from D.C. with the latest, and they're not the only ones, Megan.
They're not the only ones, Carl. That's right. So first it was the EU overnight announcing some retaliatory tariffs. And then just in the last few minutes, Canada now saying they will be putting 25% tariffs starting tomorrow on about $20 billion in U.S. exports. They say they'll mostly be targeting steel and aluminum, but they're also going to hit some other U.S. imports. They say that'll include computers, sports equipment, and cast iron products, just as some examples. So expect more details to come from Canada. And I would also expect more retaliatory announcements to come today, guys, as other countries start to digest this move, because remember, this hits everybody across the world. So we do expect to see more retaliation. And now getting back to where Steve left off, this is the rare policy move where we have a pretty good idea of what the economic impact will be, because we saw this happen in President Trump's first term when he first imposed these tariffs on most, at the time, steel and aluminum imports. That was back in 2018. He then later carved out a handful of countries, in part because of the economic impact that we saw. The upshot at the time was that there was some modest help for domestic steel and aluminum producers, but all steel and aluminum users were hurt. And as Steve was saying, since that's a far larger subset of the economy, the net impact overall was a negative one. So just to put a couple of numbers behind it, some research from the Federal Reserve, it found that the tariffs boosted employment in manufacturing by about 0.3%. That's how much it helped producers. But the rising input costs then dragged down the same sector's employment in manufacturing by a little over 1%. Retaliation pulled it down another 0.7%. So then on net, the impact was about a 1.4% hit to manufacturing. The Council on Foreign Relations says that was a direct loss of about 75,000 manufacturing jobs. And to put it more simply, economists at the Peterson Institute estimated there was a cost to consumers of about $900,000 for every one job saved or created in the steel industry. And remember, guys, those tariffs impacted only a fraction of the steel and aluminum imports that are seeing new duties today. So we can expect that impact to only multiply now that it's a bigger move. Guys.
Megan, it felt like in Trump 1.0 that the tariff policy was really solving for what you just laid out: job preservation, preservation of manufacturing. This time it feels a lot more muddied. It feels like, one day it's about fentanyl, one day it's about, making sure that U.S. manufacturing remains competitive and jobs are saved. What are you hearing in Washington in terms of the priorities that they're looking for? Because that confusion makes it difficult to assess, what exactly is going to happen next. If the fentanyl issue gets solved, then are tariffs going away? Or if the manufacturing preservation, if they find workarounds, does that go away? But without really knowing what they're solving for, it makes it kind of challenging.
Absolutely. You are hitting on what I hear the most about from industry, from companies, from consumers, is that it's not clear what the goal is with these. And because of that, people don't know how to react. They don't know what the overarching priorities are. You're absolutely right. First, it was fentanyl. These tariffs are about national security. The reciprocal tariffs are about fairness and a level playing field, and maybe the trade deficit, and maybe just some longstanding gripes with the EU and with Canada particularly. Those are the ones we hear the most, where the president seems to have some personal frictions or some personal gripes, I would say. So what I hear from the White House is that it shifts almost every time that you talk to them. They're focused on the same pool of things that you and I have now both mentioned, but they're not always leaning on just one. Remember, a few weeks ago, they said they were never going to take the Canada and Mexico tariffs off until there were 0 fentanyl deaths in the U.S. Obviously, we didn't get to that point. Then they said they talked to the car companies. They didn't want to hurt them. That's how they removed about half of those. So we just don't know. And you're right that industry does not like that they're using tariffs to try to solve for non-economic issues. We will have to see how that develops.
We will have to. Megan, thank you very much.